Out of context, this is hilarious. It's a silly way to use the game's animations and sound effects in a way that wasn't intended and flop around like a fish making funny noises. But the name the community has collectively given this, squidbagging, changes what it means a lot. The word squidbagging comes from the term teabagging, which is a term from other shooters that predate Splatoon. I can't explain what teabagging is in a way that is both family-friendly and accurate at all, so I'll just leave it at it's a gross juvenile dominance display that people use to lord a kill they got over the player that they got it on. There are other more innocent ways to squidbag. Squidbagging outside the context of getting a splat on someone can be used to initiate a squid party with opposing players, or to show that you come in peace when players disconnect during a tournament match. There are other fun, joking contexts for it too. Sometimes friends will do it to each other ironically to greet each other when they end up on opposite teams in a solo match. But squidbagging a stranger in an online match-made lobby is generally seen as a way to disrespect them after beating them. I want to leave you with a few thoughts about this kind of squidbagging. Firstly, if you're squidbagging, you're not taking advantage of the splat you just got. That player respawns in 10 seconds. If you spend 3 of those seconds squidbagging them, you've significantly diminished the advantage that you've earned. Spend that time painting. You can get a quarter of the way to special that way, or move up to take an advantageous position you wouldn't have had otherwise. You could pick up clams. If someone is squidbagging you in solo, that's good for you. They're only setting themselves back by doing so. Don't respond by squidbagging back. Just take advantage of the extra time you get when you splat them that they're choosing to waste when they splat you. Secondly, squidbagging hurts the community. Now, to be clear, Splatoon is one of the least toxic competitive communities that exist in gaming. I actually heard from a researcher who was studying the subject that the Splatoon community is more gender diverse than any other esport. That speaks volumes of our commitment to inclusivity and intolerance of bigotry. But that's all the more reason not to take after other communities that deal with more behavior like this. Being disrespected can put someone on tilt, and while you may think to use putting your opponent on tilt as a tactic, realize that people who are on tilt are not having fun and are more likely to stop playing the game. Communities turning disrespectful and toxic drive people away who may like the game but don't want to deal with the way other people online treat them in it. Whether or not you think it's a valid reason to quit, even if you look down on people who would quit for that, the fact remains that people will quit or play less because of it. I spent a long time organizing in-person Smash tournaments, and one of the things I learned from that is that there's a staggeringly large number of people who get very close to competitive gaming communities but decide against joining them. Every day there were 2 or 3 brand new players who had never heard of us until then, and they'd very cautiously dip their toes in the water, sitting alone at the venue, not interacting much, just observing the event. And the majority of those players would see how serious we immediately expected them to be, or maybe see how rowdy some players would get, and they'd not feel all that comfortable being there, and we wouldn't see them back the next week. If you were to ask the regulars, the very vocal 2 or 3% of players who had the most outsized, overrepresented voice in that community, I bet they wouldn't even remember the people who left because of their behavior. Most of the time, when you drive players out of the community, the fact that you're doing so is completely invisible to you. My personal measurement of how valuable a person is to any community is how many people they bring into the community minus the number of people they drive out of it. Driving people away means fewer practice partners, that it's harder to find teammates, that new players just getting into the scene don't stick around long enough to become competitive players, that competitive players quit before they reach their full potential, that fewer players are inspired to become tournament organizers and casters and content creators and analysts, that as a whole we are smaller and less active and less powerful with less of a voice to ask others for resources to do what we want to do. In the end, that will give you, as a player, fewer opportunities to learn and grow. So yes, I am actually going to argue that behaving disrespectfully towards other players will make you worse at the video game than you could have been. Whatever advantage you gained by tilting a player, it's going to be canceled out somewhat by the negative impact you're having on the community and the loss of opportunities that you could use to get better if we had them. Even if you're the best player in the world, doing stuff like that might mean that someone who would have risen up to be your equal and challenge you to be better never rises up through the ranks. If you squidbag opponents like this, I want you to think about why you do it. What emotional need does that meet for you? Why do you need to feel better than that other player so badly? Why should that other player feel bad about not playing the game as well as you do? It's a silly game where people turn into squids and shoot super soakers at each other. Like, it's great, but also, is it really that important? Does it really determine your worth as a person that much? You know what? Let's pretend it does. Let's pretend it does determine your worth for the sake of argument. In my experience, the people who are most attractive, skillful, wise, whatever, they are secure in those positive qualities of themselves. They don't need to put other people down to feel good about it. The ones who want to put others down are the ones who feel the most insecure about themselves, who are afraid that others will see them as less attractive, skillful, wise, and as a result make big showy displays of how good they are to make sure that other people don't think differently. If a team really knows they're better than you, like beyond any shadow of the doubt, you're not even a blip on their radar, they're not going to show it by squidbagging. They're going to KO in 40 seconds without getting splatted once, tell you GG in the post-game chat, and be on their way to the next round of bracket, forgetting that you ever existed. But wait, Jem, I've seen top players squidbagging each other in tournaments before. Yeah, that's true. And frankly, I'm not going to defend it much. Sometimes it is more for show, for the content. Two players are in it for the sake of a fun rivalry to watch. Think about how most of pro wrestling is trash talk and not a lot is actually wrestling. It's the same sort of performance. But most of the time, I wish they wouldn't. I think that it is role modeling behavior that will ultimately make the scene smaller and more exclusive, especially given how many others will imitate it. Just because someone's really good at a video game does not mean that they're going to be a responsible or mature individual. Copy the way that they coordinate their specials, but think twice before copying the way that they treat other people.